69. But what we need to, so based on that, I'd like to offer a motion, because based on what I just said, I'd like to make a motion that we, and the chairman has that we increase that, our operating budget by $100,000.
Is there a second? Can you come up and identify yourself, please?
Sarah McQuaid, 1465 Oxford Road.
Any second. Thank you. So what we have is a proposed amendment to Article 4. It's a motion and seconded. So the discussion that will open now is only on the amendment. If there are questions or
May I make just one more point on that? The reason why the 100,000 is, if you look at what was the suggested cuts by the Budget Committee on that line of 572 or 574, using 92% as a average, we still would be not sure if 92% or higher, if the numbers were higher that actually attended public schools. We felt that at least meeting that average of 92% would require another $100,000 to meet that obligation of 92. We're still playing it safe, but there's a possibility that it could go to 100% plus one. So we felt, at least on the tuition, which we are obligated, which is non-discretionary, that at least 100,000 should be proposed increase from the school board.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
I think we're having trouble following where you are, because our books don't have a page 15. Are you looking
I'm
at
sorry,
general
I
fund
noticed
budget
that.
review analysis on the top?
You have to count in, and of course I noticed that's 6, 7. I'm sorry. 7. Okay, I'm sorry. I was on page 7. I counted in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. I'm sorry. It's actually in the fold. It's actually in the fold. I'm sorry. So it's budget presentation and budget analyst. You are correct, Mr. Michel.
Okay, that's not in the fold.
No.
So
Oh, I'm sorry.
just
I
just
lost
to
that.
clarify, so the fold in the booklet
No.
is at page 5 and 6, and the pages that we're looking at are on the next 2 pages.
Sorry about that. I didn't count. I thought I counted 11 in.
So I just want to clarify, the top of this page that you're looking at says general fund budget review analysis. And I see it not in the back.
No, I'm looking at, it says budget presentation, and then the page next to it is budget review. Yes, budget review analysis, you were correct.
Okay. And in the line where the motion is for the 100,000 is under high school regular education tuition.
1105, that's correct.
Line numbers. These don't have a count. I thought.
So
Second
I
line
think,
down, sorry. Sorry.
Thank you.
David Pearl, 79 Main Street, current member of the Budget Committee. I just wanted to fill in a few items on the narrative that Jim gave you. In October of 2011, before we started the school budget process, I made a motion in the Budget Committee which was passed, which asked, it was an opinion only, that the school fund balance should only be spent for emergency or unforeseen items. We asked the Budget Committee rep to convey this to the school board and bring back any communication. I asked for that twice, and we received no communication back. This was prompted because in last year's budget, there was about $225,000 that was fund balance spent. I'm a believer that if we vote here to appropriate money for a particular purpose, that it should be spent for that purpose, excluding emergencies or unforeseen safety items. Again, before I made a motion to cut this budget, 2 days before that meeting, I appeared at the school board meeting and through public input, I asked the school board to adopt such a policy. Again, I received no answer. I think it's important that when we are voting on money here, that we know that that is the purpose of it. And it's not going to be repurposed without the approval of this body and spent on something else. And I think this did play into the cuts that were made this year. They played into it as far as my votes went, and I will admit that here, that had I had assurance that this money would be spent only for the purposes appropriated, it may have affected my votes on the cuts that were made. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Yes, Madam Moderator. May I indulge the moderator to also have a little more time to respond, because it is a big budget, and Councilor Sullivan has also said a lot. I don't know if I'll go over my 3 minutes or not, but I would indulge the moderator under the circumstances.
That's fine, as long as there's not people behind you.
Thank you very much. I guess when everybody, if you don't mind, may I address the audience?
No, you address the moderator.
Well, then pardon my back. What is not being stated here is the understanding that they're addressing one line, the tuition line, to add $100,000 to that tuition line. What I want everybody in this room to understand is the school budget is a bottom line budget, which means they can transfer money from any other line in their $26 million budget to put $100,000 into that tuition line if they see it as insufficient to fund. What the Budget Committee did to propose their budget cuts was to remove most of the money that the Budget Committee cut out of the tuition line, because there was plenty of money in there in a bottom line budget, to remove that money, and they can decide on their own later on where they want to move money around after that. I think it is a little, I want to inform the public that the function line of the tuition line is not set the way they seem to be proposing right now. Yes, we cut $572,000 out of the tuition line, knowing that there's a $26+ million budget here that they can move around to other lines. Okay, it's a bottom line budget. They can move money into salaries, they can move money into equipment, they can move money into maintenance if they want. So to ask for $100,000 for that specific tuition line, not stating that, that money can be added to it, I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. Secondly, on the language arts coordinators and the 2 other positions, well, maybe that doesn't discuss the 100,000. So I will leave it at that. Again, it's a bottom line budget. They can move their money around, not stuck to that tuition line itself. Thank you.
Thank you. I would certainly entertain your comments on the rest of the budget when we get there. But comments right now are only on the amendment.
Thank you.
Tom Lazard, 21 Post Road. I'm also the liaison from the town council to the budget committee. I try to approach all this stuff analytically, and I request a lot of information. I extend my thanks to Karen Lazard for her diligence in getting us the information. One of the things I looked at was trending in regards to surplus tuition line for Manchester. And what we did is took 3 consecutive years. A member of the budget committee asked for audited statements from 09, fiscal year 0809, 0910, and 1011. And what we looked at was that the surplus from 0809 was about just a hair under 200,000, when there was regular high school students of about 475, give or take. Fiscal year of 0910, the surplus actually nearly doubled, or I should say did double, to about 132% increase in surplus. At the same time, the number of students also increased by approximately 41 students. So there's some other things that are odd in regards to how this thing starts to climb. Now, in the fiscal year 2010-11, the students dropped down to around 475, give or take, and that excess or surplus tuition line jumped to 769,000. Now, these aren't my numbers, these are part of the audited statements. But what it shows is there's quite a bit of leeway there, and I'm grateful that after we presented this, that they readdressed it and came up with the 92%. The other thing that we need to look at too is that a lot of the things that we adjusted, I'm going to say adjusted, not cut, were transferred to the warrant, technology and several other things. So even though the budget committee stated that they cut something, a certain percentage of that, of course, is going to the warrants so that taxpayers can look at them and address them to those specific allocations. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the amendment?
Ken Sheriff, 16 Post Road. Mr. Sullivan, I just have a quick question. You indicated the previous years.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, can you repeat your name, please?
Ken Sheriff. Scherer.
Thank you.
You indicated the previous year there was participation at the high school at was it 84 or 87% enrollment? It was 87?
I believe I said 87, but I don't, and Dr. Littlefield presented that he did advise that that line was high, so we looked at it, and I thought the year 87, a little lower than that, and then the year before was 100% plus one. But based on the 5 year, going back 5 years, that's where the average comes out to 92% of the students would be normally assigned to public school, only 92% have going.
Okay. And how many students do we have attending high school currently?
Someone on the administration answer that? Board administration?
I know we're seeing updates every meeting on the numbers, but it escapes me. But we'll get that for you, Madam Chairman. We'll get that for you.
Yes, Dr. Littlefield.
I have the October first enrollment number, and it's 484.
Okay, thank you. So essentially, in terms of adjusting this particular budget line, we're looking at achieving a 5% increase potentially in student enrollment. But to do the math, it's a 21% increase to the budget line itself, which sounds kind of significant for what we're trying to achieve.
I don't have an answer for you at that moment, at this moment. Is this figures correct on the 20, on that?
I haven't done the calculation, but that's possible because a piece of our tuition is our capital cost, and that is a bill that we get. It's a total bill that gets split between Auburn, Candia, and Hooksett by the amount of students that are attending. So if your percentage goes up to the total amount, then the capital cost piece of that tuition will go up. So it's not as easy as looking at the number of students, the extra number of students.
Okay, but regardless, $100,000 is 21% of 474, so that would be the increase.
All right, all questions to the moderator.
I'm sorry, I have no further questions.
One more thing I want to add, I was going to mention it as part of the operating budget discussion, but since you mentioned the fund balance as a relevant point to increase the 100,000, I want to give everybody a clear understanding of what the fund balances have been for the last 3 years, what the budget committee had requested that information for. Every single year for the last 3 years, 3 years ago, 2008, 2009, the school district returned about $814,000, rough estimate, rounding off. $814,000 was returned to reduce the tax rate in their fund balance, unspent. Last year, they returned $999,283 back to the funds that they had not been spent. I'm sorry, that was 2 years ago. This past year, ending in June, they returned over $1 million, $1,093,788. So to say that they need another $100,000 for the tuition line, and targeting that specific tuition line, I would argue that the money's already there. Thank you.
Ken Sheriff, 16 Post.